I love to talk. I go on and on and on and on. And one of the reasons that the main reason I joined Toastmasters was to improve my speaking skills, knowing that I will always have an audience. 5 years along, I've noticed that I've gained another skill, almost more important than the speaking skills, probably just as important. I'm starting to learn to listen. Now, I came up with an acronym for the art of listening. This helps me to remember when I'm in a conversation. Oh, yes, this is the art. A for accept. R for respect. And T for trust. I'm going to talk about how this worked in a recent conversation with my sister. It's one thing to practice these skills in a group like Toastmasters where everyone listens very quietly and respectfully. You're expected to do that. It's pretty easy, as opposed to outside of Toastmasters, especially talking with your family. Now, my sister and I are poles apart on politics and social issues. Recently, we had a conversation that actually came out quite well, and I was very gratified by this because for quite a while we'd stopped having any sort of what you might call like hardcore discussions about anything, because sometimes it generally ended acrimoniously and sometimes in tears. But I know how much my sister loves to sink her teeth into a really meaty subject. She just loves it. And knowing this and knowing how she'd held back out of, respect for my tender feelings, I thought, well, we'll give it a try. And the subject of housing came up. And why isn't there enough housing? And what a problem this is. And there's so many people without houses. And I said to her, if we really believe that it's a right for people to have houses, if we really believed it, we would have solved this problem. Everyone would have a house. I said the reason that it's still such a huge issue is because we don't really believe it. I said, everyone has a right to food, clothing, and shelter. These are basic human rights. Don't you think? Well, my sister wasn't so sure. She said, well, I'm uncomfortable with the word right. Like, won't that mean like people will feel like they don't have to contribute, or they can just laze around, or they can, that things will just get taken care of them and they won't use their individual initiative, and isn't it way too expensive? I just couldn't leave it there. I said, when people have their basic needs met, they're much more likely to contribute. Don't you think they're going to want to contribute because they'll feel a part of that? They will naturally want to find their niche, find a way to contribute, that they're going to, be happy in being a part of community and society and wanting to work and, raise their families and make this a better world. How can you think about feeling belonging when you don't have a home? Like, for one thing, you're not a part of it. And you're just totally concerned day to day. And then you don't have food and you're hungry and you've got to, find something to eat. And when you're in that continual state of stress, you're much more likely to fall prey to addictions And then the burden, speaking of financial costs, the burden of dealing with that is so much, so outweighs the cost of actually making sure everyone had a home. My sister acknowledged that this was something she hadn't really thought about, that the idea that we're more likely to contribute when our basic needs are, the idea that that's a base level, that people can deserve, that they have a right to that in today's world. And since we can't just all go out into the bush and chop down a tree and build ourselves a shelter, things aren't set up that way. There's very specific ways that individual initiative can be channeled. Anyways, I could go on and on and on. The point is that we were able to, have this discussion with neither one of us, especially not me, getting too worked up and the way I often have. And so I wondered about whether I'd use those principles in the acronym in the art of listening: accepting, respecting, and trust. And I felt that I did accept my sister, where she is right now in her life, who she is, what, how she wants to live her life, and accept that she's a, caring, intelligent person. And how this translated for me, and this is pretty significant for me, is that I was in no way trying to change her mind. That's what made the big difference. I used her viewpoint, her questions, her comments as a launching pad for myself to think about the issue and have some ideas about it. But I was doing that for myself and giving her some new information, but I wasn't trying to trying to change her mind. I can accept where she is. And this ties into the sense of respecting as well, respecting that everybody is everybody's at a certain place in their life. Everybody wants to make sense of their world, and sometimes it's a matter of picking and choosing, or ideas coming to you and you try them out for a while. Well, maybe this idea this explains why that happens, and and often, of course, those ideas, they're just sort of a fantasy, and they don't really work at all. Or maybe this worked for a little while. We're always trying out new ideas. The idea of respecting that this is something that we want to do, that we're very solution oriented, and there are so many ideas and opinions about things because we're just always thinking and interacting, and that's really exciting that we do that. Then to the last letter, T, trust. And all the way through our conversation, I was monitoring myself. How am I feeling? Am I getting worked up? Am I getting irritated? But I thought, no, I could tell I was feeling quite calm all the way through, and I was able to, keep myself at a very, sort of an enjoyable, interesting. I had a level of interest that I found enjoyable. And this ability to monitor myself and pause. And it helped that I was sitting outside. I always feel better when I'm sitting outside. This enhanced my sense of trust, that yes, I can occasionally, I can have conversations about subjects that are controversial and feel that that I was listening. That's the important thing. I feel like I was listening. I wanted my sister to know that I was listening to her. And if we can do this, if I can do this with a family member that where you always have so many, entrenched feelings and attitudes, well, I feel a little hopeful that this is something I could bring forward a little more into the community. And I'm just taking these first little steps Toastmasters has been a huge help, and I'm really interested in hearing your stories or your comments. Do you stay away from hot button subjects completely? Do you have a particular strategy? Love to hear from you.